Hi everyone, this video is a continuation of the review, but it's just the 3 word problems at the bottom. So number 8, a triangular parcel of land has 210 meters of frontage and the other boundaries have lengths of 160 meters and 192 meters. What angles does the frontage make with the other boundaries? So these word problems aren't bad, but you really have to kind of take your time with them because drawing them out, visualizing them, it's a tad tricky. So we know we have a triangular parcel of land, a piece of land. So let's start with the triangle. And then frontage is just like literally referring to the front of the piece of land. So we'll let this bottom side here be the frontage. And then it says that that frontage is 210 meters long. The other boundaries of the land, so the other sides, are 160 and 192. What angles does the frontage make with the other boundaries? So this is the frontage, and the angles that it makes with the other two boundaries are these two angles here. So this angle and this angle. These are the two angles we want to find. So now let me letter this, ABC. So we need to find angle A and angle C. That's our goal. Once we have done that, we are good to go. Okay, so let's look at what we have here. This is side, side, side. And we have all sides, no angles. And we are given sides ABC. So that means we can use law of cosines here. And since I have the option of what I want to find, a couple things. One, we want to make sure, if we were to switch to law of sines, we'd want to know what the biggest angle is. I'm going to go ahead and note what that biggest angle is. That's angle B. This is the biggest. Here's the good news. I don't want to find angle B. I mean, I can, but there's no point. I want A and C. So there's no concern about later when I'm able to switch from cosines to sines if I want to. When I get to switching, I just have to make sure I don't find B with it, which again is not my goal. So I'm going to use law of cosines to find one of my angles, and then I'll switch to law of sines to find the other one. Again, I know B is the largest angle because it's across from the longest side. So we're good there. So first I'll find angle A. Again, we have to use law of cosines here. We don't have a choice. If you can't use law of sines, it's probably law of cosines. Oh, it is law of cosines. So we want to find angle A. So I'm going to use this top formula here. A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC cosine of A. This is going to take multiple steps. Finding the angle with this formula is definitely tedious. So let's just plug in our info. A squared, let me number or letter these real quick. That's 160 squared equals 210 squared plus 192 squared minus 2 times 210 times 192 cosine of A is the unknown. And then make sure you have your calculator handy, you're going to need it. So first we got 160 squared. 25600, 210 squared, plus 192 squared. Make sure you do not combine the calculation I'm about to do with the next set of numbers because those are separate. These numbers are attached to cosine of A, so you can't subtract them with this. 80,964 minus 2 times 210 times 192, 80,640 cosine of A. Now we're going to subtract this number to the left side. 25600 minus 80964 negative 55,364 equals negative 80,640 cosine of A. And then we'll divide both sides by that negative 80,640. Those are going to cancel. Cosine of A equals, you can drop the negatives, but you have two of them, they're going to cancel. 55364 over negative 80640. Last but not least, inverse cosine of both sides. So inverse cosine, make sure you're doing cosine here, not sine. Very easy to mix them up once we go back and forth. 55364 over 80640 equals A. A is approximately inverse cosine 55364 over 80640. 46.6. 46.6 degrees. So that's the measure of angle A. Next, we just need to find angle C. Reminder, this is where you can now switch to law of sines because I now have the A's, I have both of them. And I know I'm not finding the biggest angle in the triangle. I've already identified that as the B angle. So I can safely find C with law of sines. Again, if you want to find it using law of cosines, you can. You're going to have to do that level of work again. That is why I personally prefer law of sines. So we have sine of C over C. This is what we're trying to find. Over, we have the A's. Sine of A over A. Sine of C over little c is 192 equals sine of big A is 46.6 over little a is 160. Cross multiply. (160) sine of C is equal to 192 sine of 46.6. Divide off the 160 on both sides. Sine of C equals 192 sine of 46.6 over 160. Last but not least, inverse sine of both sides to get our answer. 192 sine of 46.6 over 160. Nope, I almost copied and pasted the cosine. That would not have been good. Inverse sine of 192 sine of 46.6 over 160. 60.7 when we round. 60.7 degrees. So these are the angles that the frontage makes with the other boundaries. I'll go ahead and fill those in. And I am not going to answer in a complete sentence. Just not going to. 46.6 degrees and 7 degrees. There you have it. Two more. Hansel and Gretel are lost in the forest. They decide to go in opposite directions to try to find their way home. They decide to stay in view of a large boulder so that they would not lose each other. At one point, Hansel and Gretel were 5 miles apart. The angle between Hansel and the boulder is 25 degrees, and the angle between Gretel and the boulder is 15 degrees. How far from the boulder is each child? Okay. So of the problems, this was definitely the one that I struggled the most to wrap my head around, like for the picture, but we'll get through it. So this is number 9. So obviously we know we're working with triangles here. That's the whole point of this entire unit. So at least we can start there. So let this be Hansel and this be Gretel. And I'm just really doing this to kind of model like what's going on and kind of get a visual. So first off, it says at one point they are 5 miles apart. So the distance between them is 5. And then the boulder, they need to keep it in view. So I assume they're like looking at the boulder. So we'll put the boulder up here. The angle between Hansel and the boulder is 25 degrees. And the angle between Gretel and the boulder is 15 degrees. How far from the boulder is each child? So basically we need to find this distance from Hansel to boulder and boulder to Gretel. Find both of those. So I guess we kind of have our letters. This is H, G, and B. So then we have little b, little h, and little g. And then we need to find the distances here. So we need to find the 2 side lengths. So our goal here is to find G and H. All right, let's look at what we have given. We are given angles H and G. Let me put those in alphabetical order. Angle G, angle H, and side H. And we want sides, side B. Here we go. Now, this is a little confusing because, we're used to the letters A, B, and C, so just adjust accordingly. Now, initially looking at this information, you're like, oh goodness, I'd have to use law of cosines. 1, I can't use law of cosines yet because I have one side. I need 2 sides and the other angle of the third letter. I don't have that. So actually, that is going to save me some headache for sure. I can find this third angle because I already know the first 2. They're 25 and 15. I believe that will leave me with 140, but let me just check. 180 minus 25 minus 15, 140. So the angle at the boulder is 140 degrees. This will now allow me to use law of sines. I know the biggest angle, I know the value of it, and I now have an angle pairing. So now that I have angle B as well, I am good to use law of sines. So now I just have to use law of sines twice, once to find G and once to find H. And finding sides with law of sines is definitely the best. Better than finding angles. So we have sine of big G over little g equals, we have the b's. Sine of big B over B. Again, if you wanted to rename this triangle with ABC like you used to, that's fine. But I don't think it's too big of a learning curve to throw other letters in there. It works the same way. Sine of G over G, sine of B over B. Filling in, we have sine of 15 over little g equals sine of 140 over 5. Cross multiply. We have 5 sine of 15 equals G sine of 140. Divide off the sine of 140 on both sides. And then G is that fraction. Put it in my calculator. 5 sine of 15 over sine of 140. Nearest tenth, we have 2.0. So that's G, 2.0. and now h. Of course, you could just write 2, but I'm just emphasizing the 0 to show I did look at the tens place. Now we repeat that to find h. So we want sine of h over h equals, and again we're going to use the b's. That's what we're given. Sine of b over b. Sine of big H is 25 over little h is unknown. And I'm going to copy that proportion down above. It's the same numbers I'll need anyway. Cross multiply. We have 5 sine of 25 equals h sine of 140. Divide off the sine of 140 on both sides. These cancel. H is approximately, and what's nice about these is they are very easy to copy and paste and edit. All I had to do was change that to 25 instead of 15. Yes. I get my answer. 3.3 for Hansel's distance. So my goals were to find G and H, accomplished. So let me just answer it on my paper. Okay. So for Gretel, it was 2 miles. Yep. Gretel was 2 miles. And then Hansel was 3.3 miles. All right, the last problem. Lupe and Jane are golfing on a beautiful summer day. The 5th hole is 520 yards from the tee. On that hole, Lupe hit her drive 280 yards, but to the left of the correct direction, off by 15 degrees. Find the distance from Lupe's ball and the hole. All right, let me draw this out. So let's just kind of think through this scenario. All right, the 5th hole is 520 yards from the tee. So here we have the tee, and here we have the hole. The distance from tee to hole is 520 yards. And then Lupe hit her drive 280 yards, but to the left of the correct direction. So she was supposed to hit it this way, and she hit it 15 degrees to the left, because it said to the left, off by 15 degrees. So we're going to go this way, to the left. And we know that this measurement here is 15 degrees. That's how much she was off from the hole. And then she hit her drive 280 yards. So here's the tee. She hits the ball, it goes up. So this is supposed to be the drive. That's what this side is supposed to represent. And that's 280. And this is find the distance from the ball to the hole. So we'll let this be ball up here. So find the distance from the ball to the hole. So this side here. This will be side little t. That's what we need to find. And let me go ahead and give letters here. So 280 is H and 520, little h, and 520 is little b. Okay, it's all set up. Now let's kind of just sit back and look at what we have. First off, we have a side angle side triangle, which I don't think I identified that in the previous problem, but it was all right. We still got to the right answer. And it's a shame this isn't an area problem because that would take way less time. And then we need to find T. So we were given sides B, H, and angle T. This is the perfect setup for a cosine problem. All 3 numbers are different, and we have 2 sides and 1 angle. So this is what we can use to find missing information. Unfortunately, it's not going to get us exactly where we want to go yet. Or actually, no, it will get us exactly what we want. So let me grab my formula sheet. We're going to find angle T. Now for this, just kind of, since the letters are not matching exactly, we're going to kind of have to be a little abstract here, but just notice the format of our setup here. So T is our angle. So if we were to treat it like this A here, it's going to be T squared and angle T. So let me start with that. T squared equals, so if I'm letting like T be my A, and then it's the other two letters squared for sides. So B squared plus H squared minus 2, and then it repeats those same two sides I just used, minus 2BH cosine of your angle, which here it was A, so for this problem it's T. So it's not too hard to work with once you pick up on what the pattern is. Okay. We know B, H, and big T, that's going to find us little t, which is what we're looking for. So this is actually going to be a quick problem. T squared equals, B squared is 520. H squared is 280. Minus 2 times 520, 280. Cosine of T was 15. Again, if mixing up the letters was confusing, just name them ABC and then go on with it. Square root both sides. Don't forget that important step, because without the square rooting, you're finding T squared, and we want T. Type that all into your calculator and we'll be done. So don't forget the square root first and foremost. 520 squared plus 280 squared minus 2 times 520 times 280 cosine of 15. Just make sure all that's typed in correctly. Yes. Okay, rounding to the nearest tenth. 259.9 yards. So last but not least, filling in our answer on the paper, the distance is 259.9 yards. Alright, so there are the word problems. So like I said, the drawing of the picture, figuring out where things go, that is definitely a bit tricky, but reminder, you're going to end up with a triangle because that is the unit we are in. So use that information to your advantage and then try to configure a triangle from there. And just try to think through the situation. I find that always helps. Alright, I hope this video was helpful. If you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out to me via email or come see me in person. Otherwise, I hope you have an awesome day. Bye!